Greetings, friends. My name is Pravfond, and now we'll unveil the top news of recent days. Russia has spent millions of euros on propaganda in Europe through the state legal defense fund Pravfond, which operates in 48 countries, according to international documents obtained by The Guardian. The fund finances propaganda websites targeting Europeans, spending money to combat Russophobia and promote the protection of the Russian language in Europe. In a 2020 national security report, the Estonian security services called Pravfond a pseudo-legal protection system that is, in reality, an influence operations fund. And they have said the FSB uses their groups to recruit collaborators abroad, including among supporters of the 2014 annexation of Crimea, many of whom had ties to this group. Pravfond was founded in 2012 by presidential decree and was backed by the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the federal agency Россотрудничество, which administers foreign aid and has been described by the head of Pravfond, Alexander Udaltsov, as a unique element of Russian soft power. Udaltsov has been subject to sanctions by the EU since 2023 for supporting and implementing actions and policies which undermine and threaten the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence of Ukraine. The documents show that the group has spent millions of euros to finance propaganda and legal campaigns. Public data has also shown that Pravfond's local partners have received millions in state subsidies from the European states where the foundation operates local branches, raising questions about the use of public funds and national security concerns just days before elections to the European Parliament, as political scientist Thomas Jäger said in an interview with Bild. Russian disinformation policies strengthen pro-negotiation and peace parties. Citizens of European countries do not want war, and many believe that if they give in to Putin, there will be no war. This is essentially wrong, but it works in elections. At the same time, as Intelligence Online writes, the Russian Federation is waging an information war against France in New Caledonia. The Russian Federation spreads its narratives through English-language news publications, in particular the American company Gabi Production Studio. This company is a long-time provider of services to Russian state media such as Россия Сегодня and the RT network. The French Foreign Ministry was unaware of the existence of Gabi, which disseminated Russian anti-French messages written in English. What Russian propaganda is currently actively working on is discrediting the decisions of the Allies to allow Ukraine to use Western weapons to launch strikes on the territory of the aggressor state. And of course, discrediting their decision to send NATO instructors to Ukraine. For example, coffins were brought to Paris, allegedly with French soldiers. The police quickly arrested the driver, who claimed two other people had paid him 40 euros to transport the coffins. He himself arrived in Paris from Bulgaria only the day before. Police later detained two other participants at a bus station in central Paris, where they were allegedly planning to board a bus to Berlin. They told police they were paid 400 euros to store the coffins. The police said that the other two participants were Ukrainian and German. The circumstances are reminiscent of two recent episodes in which French police believe Russian agents may have been involved. Both, it seems, are attempts to manipulate public opinion. As Le Monde newspaper reports, citing a source in the investigation, one of the detainees on Saturday spoke by phone with a Bulgarian suspect who is wanted in a case of criminal activities. And what about weapons? Ukraine is now allowed to use them to attack targets inside Russia. Avoiding escalation is probably why the US did not include long-range weapons such as ATACMS in its authorization to strike Russia. These missiles have a range of 300 kilometers and can be used to attack military bases and airfields on the territory of Russia. Such restrictions leave Ukraine with only the opportunity to focus on targets near its border. But this is already a serious change in the policy of Kyiv's main allies. Even with a shorter range of up to 70 kilometers, multiple launch rocket systems such as HIMARS can significantly disrupt Russian logistics, operations and troop movements, ultimately slowing down any offensive plans. Earlier, Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russia is withdrawing its troops at a distance of 90 kilometers from Kharkiv from another offensive. And the Institute for the Study of War analyzed satellite images and confirmed that there is extended activity at bases and warehouses in the area, so the ability to strike will seriously strengthen the ability of Ukrainian forces to repel new attacks in the region. However, lifting the ban on Western weapons is unlikely to help protect Ukraine from Russian glide bombs. They have a devastating effect and are regularly used for bombing Kharkiv and other border towns. But to stop such attacks, Ukrainian forces must target the planes that drop these glide bombs. The only weapon capable of intercepting these planes as now, which is at the disposal of Ukraine at the moment, is the American Patriot air defense system. However, bringing these weapons to Kharkiv is a huge risk. Spy drones can quickly spot them, and Moscow can launch missiles like the Iskander to destroy them. And those are expensive systems. That's why we need either more such systems or newer ones. 2 weeks ago, Pentagon spokesman Major General Patrick Ryder stated that Russia may have launched an anti-satellite vehicle into low Earth orbit, but this was not the first Kremlin attempt to launch such a mechanism. In 2019 and 2022, the Russian space agency launched into low orbit a clutch of small maneuverable inspection satellites whose ostensible role is to rendezvous with others and inspect other satellites in order to diagnose malfunctions. Russian inspection satellites tend to be short-lived. After a couple of years, they run out of fuel, lose altitude and burn up in the atmosphere. To maintain an orbital arsenal for a possible future space war, the Kremlin must launch a fresh batch of inspection satellites every few years. And it is very good that they burn up instead of exploding in space, because the destruction of a satellite could produce more than 100,000 fragments. Imagine if tens of Russian inspection satellites went on an orbital rampage targeting scores of satellites. Millions of dangerous fragments could scarce across low orbits. Now consider, more than 30 times since 1999, the International Space Station has had to fire boosters and change its altitude in order to dodge dangerous debris. The rate of evasive maneuvers is increasing as the quantity of space debris also increases. And this is happening in peacetime. Open warfare in space could render the base's low orbits practically unusable. In that sense, Russia's constantly replenishing arsenal of potentially destructive spacecraft isn't just a threat to existing American. It is a threat to everything humanity does in that low region of space. But while the Kremlin threatens the entire low-orbit space, the Russian state corporation Roscosmos cannot produce 4 of the 6 geostationary satellites that provide communication channels between Russia and their friendly countries. Roscosmos cannot begin manufacturing them due to lack of funding. At the same time, the Russian Federation plans to place atomic weapons in orbit, which could destroy almost all satellites in one explosion. And even just messages about the possibility of deploying nuclear weapons in space are another step in intimidation and escalation itself. Standard practice in Moscow. And most importantly, it works. The Biden administration has already stated that it is ready to discuss the issue of nuclear weapons in space with Moscow. Despite Russia's war in Ukraine, Americans are interested in arms control negotiations. However, the Russian Foreign Ministry is ready to negotiate on strategic stability only if the United States changes its policy towards Moscow, stops supporting Ukraine, and is ready to discuss issues of interest to the Russian side, namely NATO expansion, missile defense, and bringing the weapons of the United States and other alliance members closer to the borders with Russia. That is, in fact, it is proposed to accept the ultimatums outlined in the documents of December 2021, which Russia offered to the United States and NATO before its invasion of Ukraine. Of course, this scenario is unrealistic, but when did Russia look at reality? There are only the dreams of a dictator. That concludes our today's video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated, comment, like, and subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. It is your support that really matters for us. Goodbye.